A Mario cartoon that only lasted one season? Michael Jordan fighting crime? These 90s cartoons had everything going for them and vanished after 13 episodes. The 1990s were a fascinating time for television. With the massive success of shows like The Simpsons and Batman, the animated series, every network was desperate to find the next big animated hit. This sparked a creative boom and a willingness to take risks on weird, ambitious, and sometimes completely bizarre ideas. It was an era of experimentation where it felt like anything could get greenlit. But with high risk often comes high failure. For every long-running classic, there were a dozen shows that premiered with huge potential, only to vanish after a single 13-episode run. These shows weren't always bad either. Some were victims of network politics, some were just too strange for their time, and others were based on trends that faded faster than a commercial break. So today, we're not just listing forgotten shows, we're asking why they were forgotten. Let's get into the stories behind the one-season wonders of the 90s. What if Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and Bo Jackson weren't just sports legends, but also a team of superheroes? In 1991, DIC Entertainment answered that question with Pro Stars. The show featured the animated trio operating out of Mom's Gym, where they used sports-themed gadgets to fight crime and protect the environment. Each episode opened with a live-action segment from the real athletes, a gimmick to draw in viewers. But despite featuring three of the most famous people on the planet, the show was gone after 13 episodes. The concept was a bizarre stretch, and none of the athletes voiced their characters due to busy schedules. Ultimately, it was a victim of its own absurdity and of NBC scaling back its Saturday morning cartoon block. Number 9. The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3, 1990. Hold on, a Mario cartoon that only lasted one season? Sounds impossible, but it's true. While the Super Mario Bros. Super Show was a huge hit, its direct sequel, The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3, had a much shorter life. Based on the massively popular NES game, the series premiered in 1990 on NBC. This show followed Mario, Luigi, Princess Toadstool, and Toad as they defended the Mushroom Kingdom from Bowser and his 7 Koopalings. It did an amazing job of bringing elements from the game to life, featuring power-ups like the Super Leaf and Frog Suit, and basing entire episodes on the game's different worlds. It was a faithful and fun adaptation. So why did it end so quickly? The answer is less about failure and more about strategy. These video game tie-in shows were designed to promote the current hit game. When Nintendo released the Super Nintendo and Super Mario World, the Mario 3 show was simply replaced by a new cartoon, Super Mario World, to promote the new game. So it wasn't canceled for being bad, but because its time was up. Number 8. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, 1990. Yes, they really made a cartoon based on the cult classic B-movie. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was a sequel to the films, premiering on the Fox Children's Network in 1990. The series continues the story of the mad scientist Dr. Putrid T. Gangrene, who is still trying to achieve world domination by creating sentient, evil tomatoes. He's opposed by Chad Finletter, a pizza delivery boy, and his friends, including Tara Baumday, a tomato secretly turned into a human girl, and FT, a fluffy, fuzzy tomato who they pass off as a dog. The show was just as zany and self-referential as the movies, often breaking the fourth wall and poking fun at its own low-budget origins. The original 1990 run consisted of 13 episodes. A second season was attempted in 1991, but was so drastically retooled with a different, more serious tone and a pioneering but unrefined computer animation style that it was almost unrecognizable. That version quickly failed, leaving the original wacky series to be remembered as a bizarre one-season experiment. Number 7. Dumb and Dumber, the animated series, 1995. Speaking of cashing in, let's talk about movie adaptations. In the mid-90s, Jim Carrey was untouchable. Both Ace Ventura and The Mask spun off into successful animated series, so when Dumb and Dumber crushed the box office in 1994, a cartoon seemed like a no-brainer. Produced by the legendary Hanna-Barbera, the animated series followed the continuing road trip misadventures of the dim-witted duo, Harry and Lloyd. The show introduced a new character, a purple beaver named Kitty, who was smarter than both of them put together. It tried its best to translate the movie's slapstick and gross-out humor for a Saturday morning audience, but it just couldn't capture the magic of the film. Critics called the plots insultingly primitive, and without the one-of-a-kind chemistry between Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, the jokes just fell flat. The forced goofiness didn't work nearly as well in animation, leading to its cancellation after a single 13-episode season. It turns out some comedy is best left in live action. Number 6. The Wizard of Oz, 1990. Adapting one of the most beloved movies ever made is a huge task, but in 1990, DIC Animation City tried to do just that with an animated sequel to The Wizard of Oz. The series saw Dorothy and Toto use the ruby slippers to return to Oz, only to find that the Wicked Witch of the West had been resurrected by her flying monkeys and taken over the Emerald City once again. This was a direct sequel, picking up right where the 1939 film left off. It had all the familiar faces, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, who all teamed up with Dorothy to stop the witch. It even had musical numbers meant to echo the style of the movie. But despite having classic source material and a great Saturday morning time slot, the show just didn't connect with audiences. It was canceled after 13 episodes, unable to compete with newer, more exciting cartoons like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Tiny Toon Adventures. It seems that sometimes there really is no place like the original. Number 5. Wild Cats, 1994. Capitalizing on the 90s comic book boom, Wild Cats was based on superstar artist Jim Lee's wildly popular Image Comics series. The show centered on a covert team of superheroes engaged in an ancient war against the Demonites, a menacing alien race. Produced by Nelvana and airing on CBS, it was positioned as a competitor to the hit X-Men animated series, even spawning a Playmates toy line. The series adapted the comic's core storyline and characters like Spartan, Grifter, and Zealot. However, despite the comic's massive success and a rock-infused soundtrack, the cartoon was not renewed for a second season. It struggled to stand out in a crowded superhero market and was canceled when CBS retired its Action Zone block. Number 4. Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars, 1991. Let's croak us some toads. If that line rings a bell, then you remember one of the coolest and most underrated action cartoons of the 90s. Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars was based on a comic book and followed a Green Rabbit captain named Bucky and his crew on the spaceship Righteous Indignation. Together, they fought to protect the Aniverse from the evil Toad Empire. The show had a cool sci-fi look, an awesome theme song, and a great cast of characters. It was clearly created with one major goal in mind: to launch a hit toy line from Hasbro, but the toys just didn't sell as well as everyone had hoped. When plans for a second wave of action figures were scrapped, the cartoon's fate was sealed. Low ratings and poor merchandise sales got it canceled after just 13 episodes. The story ends so abruptly that many fans consider the Konami arcade game, which even used the show's voice actors, to be the true conclusion to the saga. Number 3. Samurai Pizza Cats, 1991. Now for a true cult classic. Samurai Pizza Cats was a quirky, zany, and totally bizarre show that a lot of people remember fondly, but few realize it technically only had one season in North America. The series originally aired in Japan as Kyoto Ninden Teiyandi and ran for 54 episodes. It was a sci-fi comedy about 3 cyborg cat samurai who fought crime from their home base in a pizzeria. When Saban Entertainment licensed the show for American audiences, they hit a snag. The translated scripts they received were basically unusable. So, instead of a direct translation, the writers just made up entirely new dialogue, turning the show into a fourth-wall-breaking, pop-culture-referencing gagfest. Despite its creative approach and growing a cult following, the series struggled in its initial run. It had almost no marketing, and its rapid-fire, self-aware humor was unlike anything else on TV. While all 52 episodes were eventually dubbed and aired in syndication, the show's initial US broadcast life was cut short, cementing its status as a one-season wonder in the minds of most Western viewers. Number 2. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, 1993. Some shows are so memorable that people swear they must have run for years, and Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is the perfect example. Despite its incredible concept and cult status, this series aired for only a single 13-episode season. Based on a comic called Xenozoic Tales, the show is set in a post-apocalyptic future where humanity is forced to coexist with dinosaurs, who have mysteriously returned. The hero, Jack Tenrek, is a mechanic who fights to keep the balance between nature and technology, all while driving a modified 1953 Cadillac. He teams up with a scientist named Hannah Dundee to protect the innocent from greedy poachers and corrupt leaders. The show is praised for its mature themes, including strong environmental messages. But despite its imaginative premise and great animation, it just didn't get the support it needed. The comic's creator, Mark Schultz, felt CBS failed to promote it properly, and it vanished after its first run, leaving behind a legacy far bigger than its episode count. Number 1. Capital Critters, 1992. And at number 1, we have perhaps the most ambitious one-season wonder of the entire decade. Capital Critters. After The Simpsons changed the game, every network wanted their own primetime animated sitcom, and this was ABC's big swing. Produced by Stephen Bochco, the legendary creator of NYPD Blue, and starring the voices of Neil Patrick Harris and Bobcat Goldthwait, this show had a serious pedigree. The series followed Max, a young mouse from Nebraska voiced by Harris, who moves to Washington, D.C. and lives in the White House walls with a society of other rodents and bugs. It was a full-blown political satire that tackled shockingly heavy themes for a cartoon, like gun control, segregation, and drug use, complete with caricatures of politicians like George H.W. Bush. But the show had a fatal identity crisis. Adults were likely turned off by the talking animals, while kids couldn't possibly understand the political commentary. It was too cartoonish for grown-ups and way too complex for kids. After just 2 months and terrible ratings, ABC pulled the plug, making Capital Critters the ultimate example of a 90s cartoon that aimed for the stars and came crashing down. And that's our list. From celebrity cash grabs to daring satires, the 90s cartoon boom was filled with shows that burned brightly for just one moment. They're a monument to a time of wild experimentation, when networks would throw almost anything at the wall to see what might stick. And while these shows never got a second season, they haven't been totally forgotten. They live on in our memories and on the internet as fascinating footnotes in the golden age of animation. So, what do you think? Which of these one-season wonders do you wish had gotten a second chance? Are there any other forgotten 90s cartoons that you think deserve to be on this list? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.